Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which bird blows your mind the most. Trust me, number 15, you will not see that one coming. Now, when most people think of Panama, they picture the canal, tropical beaches, maybe some jungle adventures. But here's the secret. This tiny country is actually a birdwatcher's paradise. Panama sits right between North and South America, which makes it a superhighway for migrating birds and a hotspot for species you won't find anywhere else. From giant raptors with talons like knives, to jewel-colored hummingbirds flashing in the rainforest, to strange, secretive birds that look like they stepped straight out of a myth. Panama has it all. Fun fact, more than 1,000 species of birds have been recorded here, more than the US and Canada combined. And today, we're narrowing it down to 15 of the strangest, rarest, and most unforgettable ones. So grab your binoculars because we're heading into Panama's mountains, jungles, and coastlines. And trust me, you won't believe some of the feathers waiting for us. Let's kick off Panama's lineup with a bird so fierce, so unbelievable, it looks like it flew straight out of a fantasy novel. Meet the Harpy Eagle, the rainforest's apex predator, and honestly, one of the most intimidating birds on Earth. Picture this, a wingspan over 7 feet, talons as big as a grizzly bear's claws, and a face framed by feathered ears that make it look like it's wearing a crown. It doesn't just perch in the trees, it rules them. Here's the hook. Harpy eagles can snatch monkeys and sloths straight out of the canopy. That's right. While you're struggling to lift groceries, this bird is casually carrying off a howler monkey for lunch. Fun fact, despite their terrifying look, harpies are surprisingly shy around humans. They nest high in giant kapok trees, building platforms so huge they could hold a grown person. And they only raise one chick every couple of years, which makes every eagle family a precious investment for the species. But here's the twist. Harpy eagles aren't villains of the jungle. They're actually vital. By keeping monkey and sloth populations balanced, they help the rainforest stay healthy. Take them away, and the whole ecosystem tips out of balance. Sadly, deforestation has made them rare in much of Central America. In Panama, though, conservation programs are working hard to protect them. So much so that the Harpy Eagle is actually the national bird of Panama. Pretty fitting for a creature that looks like royalty. And here's my question for you. If you suddenly saw a Harpy Eagle overhead, would you grab your camera or just run for cover? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. And next, we'll go from the jungle's heavyweight to a bird so dazzling and mythical. People once thought it was a vision sent from the gods. If the Harpy Eagle was the heavyweight king of Panama's skies, the Resplendent Quetzal is the rainforest's crown jewel. This bird is so dazzling, so surreal, that ancient cultures literally worshipped it as a messenger of the gods. Picture it, shimmering emerald green body, crimson chest, and those legendary tail feathers that can stretch up to 3 feet long. When a quetzal glides through the misty cloud forests, those feathers trail behind like a living ribbon of light. It's not just a bird, it's a floating work of art. Here's the hook. In Mayan and Aztec cultures, quetzals symbolized freedom and divinity. Their feathers were more precious than gold, but killing one was forbidden. You could collect its feathers, but never the bird itself. That's how sacred it was. And yet, for all its beauty, the quetzal is surprisingly shy. It spends much of its time in the dense canopy, feeding on wild avocados and fruits. Here's the twist. Instead of swallowing seeds and digesting them, it spits them back out, helping new trees grow. So yes, the bird of the gods is also the forest gardener. Breeding season is pure spectacle. Males show off those outrageous tail plumes, dancing and calling to attract females. It's like nature's version of a red carpet fashion show, only this time, the feathers are real. But as magical as they are, quetzals are vulnerable. Deforestation and habitat loss have made them increasingly rare. Luckily, Panama's highland cloud forests still shelter these jewels, and conservationists are fighting hard to keep them safe. Fun fact? The currency of Guatemala is literally called the quetzal. That's how powerful this bird's legacy is. It still pays the bills centuries later. So here's my question for you. If you had to pick a symbol for freedom, would you go with a bald eagle's scream? or the Quetzal's silent shimmer through the forest mist? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to see which one wins. And next, we'll swap elegance for something stranger. A forest bird with a haunting voice that echoes through Panama's jungle like a ghost you can't see. If the Resplendent Quetzal is all about beauty, the Ocellated Antbird is all about mystery. This bird doesn't dazzle with color. It haunts the forest with glowing blue skin around its eyes and a voice that sounds like a spirit calling through the jungle. At first glance, it's not flashy. Dark plumage, subtle spotting, and that strange, bare patch of bright blue skin circling its eyes. But when you see it staring at you from the shadows, it's unforgettable, like something from a rainforest dream. Here's the hook. Ocellated antbirds have a secret hunting trick. They don't catch their own prey. They follow army ants. As massive swarms of ants march across the forest floor, flushing out insects, spiders, even small lizards, these birds swoop in and snatch the escapees. It's a strategy that's both lazy and brilliant. Let the ants do the work, then steal the reward. But here's the twist. They're not alone. Dozens of ant-following birds may gather at one swarm, each jockeying for the best spot. The Ocellated Antbird, though, is often the boldest, charging in to grab the prime hunting zones. Think of it as the jungle's VIP line cutter. Fun fact, their eerie calls aren't just for fun. They use them to keep in touch with mates and family members while foraging in the dense forest. And because they live in tight family groups, they defend their ant trails fiercely against rival clans. It's basically a turf war, but for bugs. Spotting one in Panama isn't easy. You don't find the bird, you find the ants first, then wait for the ghostly blue-eyed shadow to appear in the chaos. For birdwatchers, catching that moment feels like winning a rainforest lottery. So here's my question for you. Would you rather be the hunter doing the work or the clever opportunist swooping in for the free meal like the Ocellated Antbird? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious which side you'd take. And next we meet another ant-loving bird, but this one adds drama, size, and a booming presence you won't forget. If the Ocellated Antbird was the jungle's sneaky shadow, the Rufous-vented Ground-Cuckoo is its heavyweight ghost. Bigger, louder, and 10 times harder to find. This bird is so elusive that most Panamanians have never even seen one, yet its booming calls echo like a drumbeat deep in the forest. At first glance, it looks prehistoric, nearly 2 feet long, with dark bronze plumage, a heavy curved bill, and that distinct rufous patch under its tail. It walks the forest floor with slow, deliberate steps, like it knows it doesn't need to rush. Here's the hook. Like the antbird, the ground cuckoo also follows swarms of army ants. But instead of just catching bugs, it goes after bigger prey, grasshoppers, lizards, frogs, even small snakes flushed out by the ants. It's the apex opportunist of the ant world. And here's the twist. Ground cuckoos don't fly much. They prefer running and hopping through the undergrowth, covering ground quickly on long, powerful legs. In fact, they can vanish into thick vegetation so fast it feels like they teleported. That's why birders call them ghosts of the rainforest floor. Fun fact, their calls are loud, resonant booms that carry through the forest like distant drums. Scientists believe they use these sounds to stay in touch with mates or claim territory in the dense jungle. If you're hiking in Panama and hear an eerie boom, 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 it might not be thunder. It could be a ground cuckoo announcing itself. Despite their size and voice, they're incredibly rare. Habitat destruction has pushed them into smaller and smaller areas, making any sighting a true once-in-a-lifetime event. For hardcore birders, seeing a Rufous-vented Ground-Cuckoo is like winning the Super Bowl of birdwatching. So here's my question for you. If you could follow an ant swarm through the jungle, would you hope to spot the flashy blue-eyed antbird or the booming, shadowy ground cuckoo? Tell me in the comments. I want to see which team you're on. And next, we'll meet a bird that trades the forest floor for the trees with a sharp beak, a flaming mustache of feathers, and a knack for turning wood into music. After chasing ghosts on the jungle floor, let's look up, because now it's hammer time. Meet the striped-cheeked woodpecker, a flashy little drummer that turns Panama's trees into its personal concert stage. At first glance, it's striking. olive green back, golden yellow underparts, and of course those bold dark stripes running down its cheeks. Males add a splash of red on the crown, like they're wearing a feathered baseball cap backwards. It's a bird with both style and swagger. Here's the hook. Instead of singing, woodpeckers use drumming as their music. The striped-cheeked rattles its beak against tree trunks to announce territory, call for a mate, or sometimes just to make sure everyone knows it's around. Forget love songs. This bird drops beats. And here's the twist, that non-stop hammering doesn't give them headaches. Their skulls are built like shock absorbers with special bone structures that cushion every blow. Imagine headbanging thousands of times a day and still feeling fine. That's a superpower right there. Like most woodpeckers, they're bug hunters. They probe bark for ants, beetle larvae, and termites, sometimes hanging upside down to get into tricky cracks. But they'll also snack on fruit, proving they're not just hardcore carnivores. Fun fact, the striped-cheeked woodpecker is endemic to Panama, found nowhere else in the world. That makes it extra special. Lose Panama's forests, and this drummer's song disappears forever. Spotting one isn't easy. They prefer humid lowland forests, and their greenish plumage blends almost perfectly with mossy tree trunks. More often than not, you'll hear them before you see them. A sudden tat-tat-tat-tat breaking the silence of the canopy. For birders, catching sight of that striped face peeking around a trunk is like spotting a celebrity backstage. So here's my question for you. If you could choose your bird talent, would you rather sing like a cardinal or drum like a woodpecker? Tell me in the comments. I can't wait to see which way you'd go. And next we meet a bird that's part cartoon, part jungle spirit. Tiny, colorful, and packing way more personality than its size suggests. After the woodpecker's drumming, it's time for a little splash of jungle color. Meet the Tody Motmot. Tiny, shy, and so charming it looks like someone designed it for a children's storybook. This bird is small, barely 6 to 7 inches long, with emerald green feathers, a rufous crown, and a tail tipped with neat little racket ends. Those tail feathers are like custom accessories, shaped by wear until only a feathered paddle remains at the tip. When the Motmot flicks them side to side, it's like a metronome keeping time in the forest. Here's the hook. The Tody Motmot is the smallest Motmot in the world. Most of its cousins are bigger and bolder, but this little guy rules its niche quietly, flitting through lowland forests and edges of streams. And here's the twist. Despite its bright colors, it's actually tough to see. It prefers sitting still on shaded branches, waiting for unsuspecting prey to pass. Then, snap, it dives out to grab insects, spiders, or small lizards. Silent, quick, and gone before you can blink. Fun fact, Motmots are sometimes called jungle pendulums because of the way they wag their tails slowly back and forth. Scientists aren't sure if it's a warning signal, camouflage trick, or just a quirky bit of bird personality, but it's hypnotic to watch. The Tody Motmot also has a soft, almost mournful call, a simple hoo-hoo-hoo that drifts through the forest understory. Not loud, not flashy, just a gentle note that somehow matches its secretive nature. Spotting one in Panama is a true treat. Because they perch low and motionless, birders often walk right past them without noticing. But once you catch that flash of green and those curious tail rackets, you'll never forget it. So here's my question for you. If you had the choice, would you rather stand out like the flamboyant Quetzal or blend in like the sneaky, soft-spoken Tody Motmot? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your style. And next we trade soft whispers for deep stares. Because the following bird has eyes so intense, it feels like the jungle itself is watching you. If the Tody Motmot was quiet and shy, the spectacled owl is the jungle's watchful guardian, silent, serious, and staring at you like it knows your secrets. Big and imposing, this owl has dark chocolate brown feathers, a pale belly, and, most famously, bold white spectacles of feathers circling its yellow eyes. It looks like a librarian who's about to shush the entire rainforest. Here's the hook. Those eyes don't just look intense, they're tools of pure precision. Spectacled owls are master hunters of the night, gliding silently through the understory to snatch rodents, bats, frogs, and even crabs. They perch quietly, then dive with deadly accuracy. By the time you hear them, it's already too late for the prey. And here's the twist. Unlike many owls, the spectacled owl is actually pretty vocal. Its deep boo-boo-boo-hoo call can echo through the forest like a bass drum. Some locals describe it as sounding like a distant generator rumbling in the jungle. Creepy? Absolutely. Fun fact, juvenile spectacled owls look completely different from adults. While the parents are dark with white bellies, the chicks are fluffy white with a black mask, like tiny ghosts wearing ski goggles. For birders, seeing both together is like spotting two different species side by side. They're also surprisingly adaptable. Though mostly nocturnal, spectacled owls will hunt at dawn or dusk if the opportunity's right. And while they're secretive, in Panama's forests, their booming calls often give away their presence long before you see them. But make no mistake, when you finally lock eyes with one, it feels like time stops. Those yellow eyes framed by spectacles seem to look through you, not at you. It's part unsettling, part unforgettable. So here's my question for you. If you were wandering in the rainforest at night and heard that deep, booming call, would you follow it to see the owl or run the other way? Tell me in the comments. I need to know which team you're on. And next, we'll switch from jungle shadows to a bird that puzzled scientists for decades. A feathered enigma that doesn't quite fit anywhere on the bird family tree. We've met owls that stare like librarians and eagles that hunt like warriors. But now, it's time for Panama's strangest riddle. Meet the Sapayoa, also called the enigmatic Manakin. And trust me, it lives up to the name. At first glance, it doesn't scream strange. It's a small olive green bird with a yellow throat patch. Cute, yes, but not flashy like a Quetzal or noisy like a jay. But here's the hook. The Sapayoa doesn't actually belong to any of the local bird families. It's the only bird in Central America that's more closely related to species from Southeast Asia and Africa. Basically, it's a lost traveler that never went home. And here's the twist. Scientists puzzled over its DNA for decades. Was it a manakin? A flycatcher? A weird hybrid? Turns out it's a survivor of an ancient lineage that somehow crossed oceans millions of years ago and just stayed. Panama is the only place you can still see this living mystery. Behavior-wise, Sapayoas are cooperative breeders. That means multiple birds help raise the chicks in one nest, like a feathered daycare system. It's unusual, and it shows just how strange and unique their lifestyle really is. Fun fact, their name Sapayoa comes from the Sapayo River region of Ecuador, but Panama is one of the best places to spot them, usually flitting quietly in the understory, catching insects on the wing. They're not show-offs. They don't sing elaborate songs. But for birders, seeing one is like meeting a time traveler, proof that evolution leaves behind some pretty wild leftovers. So here's my question for you. If you could time travel with the Sapayoa back millions of years, would you rather visit the rainforests of Panama or the jungles of ancient Asia where its ancestors once lived? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your answer. And next, we'll go from a quiet enigma to a bird that absolutely loves to stand out, shimmering electric blue in the treetops like a feathered gemstone. After the quiet mystery of the Sapayoa, let's crank the saturation way up, because the blue Cotinga is basically a jewel with wings. If you thought birds couldn't possibly get more colorful, this one is about to prove you wrong. Picture it, a male perched high in the canopy, feathers shimmering in electric blue, almost glowing against the green rainforest. Its belly and throat shine like turquoise gemstones, while its dark wings frame the color like a painting. Honestly, if you saw one through binoculars, you'd swear it was photoshopped. Here's the hook. The blue Cotinga doesn't need to sing, dance, or show off in crazy ways. Its entire mating strategy is just being ridiculously gorgeous. Males perch in exposed spots, glowing like neon signs until the females notice. And here's the twist. Despite looking like a tropical superstar, the blue Cotinga is nearly silent. Instead of elaborate songs, they make soft, almost mechanical-sounding whistles or croaks. Imagine a bird that looks like Beyoncé but talks like a robot. That's the Cotinga. Fun fact, these birds are part of the larger Cotinga family, which includes some of the most flamboyant species in the world, like the Andean cock of the rock and the Umbrellabird. Panama's blue Cotinga might not be as bizarre in shape, but in pure color, it steals the show. They feed mostly on fruit, making them key seed dispersers for the rainforest. So every time one of these blue gems snacks on a fig, it's also planting the forest of tomorrow. Pretty good for a bird that spends most of its day just sitting and looking fabulous. But spotting one isn't easy. They like the tallest treetops, often far above the trails where birdwatchers walk. The best clue is a flash of impossible blue moving against the canopy, or if you're lucky, a male perched proudly in the open, daring you not to stare. So here's my question for you. If you could design your own bird, would you make it as bright as the blue Cotinga, or give it a crazy talent like dancing or singing instead? Tell me in the comments. I want to know your dream bird. And next, we'll head to Panama's offshore islands to meet a bird that ditched flashy colors for subtle charm. An island specialist that exists nowhere else on Earth. If the blue Cotinga was Panama's jewel, then the bare-necked Umbrellabird is its gothic rock star. Dark, dramatic, and just a little intimidating. Imagine a crow on steroids, dressed head to toe in black velvet, with a shaggy crest that droops forward like an umbrella shading its face. Then add the pièce de résistance, a bare, bright red throat patch that inflates like a balloon when it calls. Yeah, this bird is pure stage presence. Here's the hook. When the male Umbrellabird calls, the sound is so deep and booming, it echoes through the forest like a bass speaker. Some describe it as a whoomph you feel in your chest, not just your ears. If a Quetzal is rainforest opera, the Umbrellabird is rainforest heavy metal. And here's the twist. That giant throat pouch isn't just for looks. It's a resonating chamber that amplifies their voice. Males perch high on canopy branches, puff out the pouch, and let out a bass note that can travel half a mile. The louder and deeper the boom, the more attractive he is to females. Despite their dramatic vibe, Umbrellabirds are fruit specialists. They swallow big fruits whole and later drop the seeds, helping replant the rainforest one meal at a time. Without them, certain tree species would struggle to spread. So yes, goth bird, eco-hero. Fun fact, they're not soloists. During breeding season, males gather in what's called a lek, basically a singing competition. Each one booms from a perch, and the females stroll through like judges on The Voice, picking their favorite bass note. Sadly, the bare-necked Umbrellabird is considered vulnerable due to habitat loss. They need large stretches of intact forest to survive, and as those disappear, so do the echoes of their bass calls. So here's my question for you. If you were at that rainforest talent show, would you give your vote to the flashy, shimmering Quetzal or the booming goth rock Umbrellabird? Tell me in the comments. I'm dying to know which bird wins your playlist. And next, we'll meet another rainforest singer. But this one doesn't boom. It rings. Its voice is so loud and metallic, locals say it sounds like church bells clanging in the canopy. If the Umbrellabird was the goth rocker of Panama's forest, then the Three-wattled Bellbird is the cathedral singer. Its voice is so loud, so metallic, it literally sounds like someone clanging iron bells in the canopy. At first glance, the bird itself is already bizarre. The male has a stark white head, chestnut brown body, and, most striking, 3 long, fleshy black wattles dangling from its beak like feathered spaghetti. When it calls, those wattles wiggle dramatically, like a wind chime gone wild. Here's the hook. The bellbird's call is one of the loudest bird sounds on Earth. Measured at over 100 decibels, that's chainsaw loud. If you're standing right under one, you'll actually feel the sound vibrate in your chest. And here's the twist. That crazy volume has a purpose. In Panama's cloud forests, dense fog and vegetation muffle sound. The bellbird's metallic bong slices through the mist, reaching potential mates hundreds of yards away. It's nature's version of a megaphone. Fun fact, the bellbird is a long-distance traveler. It spends part of the year in Central America, then migrates back and forth through Panama's highlands. So if you hear that bell tolling in the forest, you're witnessing a rare seasonal concert. Even more fascinating, bellbirds are also seed dispersers, swallowing fruits whole and spitting out seeds far from the parent tree. So every time it rings out across the forest, it's not just singing, it's replanting. But sadly, this bird's future is shaky. Deforestation has fragmented its habitat, and climate change is pushing cloud forests higher up the mountains. Without safe corridors, the bellbird's mighty voice could one day go silent. So here's my question for you. If you could choose, would you rather wake up to the soft coo of a dove or the ear-shattering clang of a bellbird? Tell me in the comments. I bet opinions will be split on that one. And next, we'll trade booming bells for something more subtle, but just as mesmerizing. A trogon so beautifully patterned, it looks like it was carved out of stained glass. After the ear-splitting clang of the bellbird, let's step into something quieter, but visually it's pure art. Meet the lattice-tailed Trogon, a bird so exquisitely patterned, it looks like it was designed by a stained glass artist. At first sight, the male is breathtaking. Deep emerald green head and chest, fiery red belly, and of course, that dramatic tail with black and white latticework patterns. It perches quietly in the mid-canopy, almost glowing when a beam of sunlight breaks through the forest. The female is subtler, softer gray tones with the same elegant tail. Together, they're the rainforest's power couple of quiet beauty. Here's the hook. Unlike the loud bellbird or the booming Umbrellabird, the Trogon is almost whisper level. Its call is a soft, mournful cow that drifts through the trees. But spotting one is far harder than hearing it. Their stillness and camouflage make them masters of invisibility. And here's the twist. Trogons, including the lattice-tailed, have a quirky little trait. Their toes are arranged two forward, two backward, perfect for perching motionless on branches. That's why they can sit so still for so long, waiting to ambush insects or pluck fruits without ever giving themselves away. Fun fact, the lattice-tailed Trogon is found only in the humid lowland and foothill forests of Costa Rica and western Panama. So if you see one, you're in a very exclusive club. Birders travel halfway around the world for just a glimpse of that patterned tail swaying in the shade. But as with so many rainforest specialists, deforestation threatens their habitat. Lose the tall forest trees, and the lattice-tail vanishes along with them. Still, if you do catch sight of one, perched perfectly still, glowing like living glass, it feels like the forest itself just revealed a hidden masterpiece. So here's my question for you. Would you rather spot a loud bird you can hear from miles away, or a quiet, hidden gem like the Trogon that rewards patience and sharp eyes? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know what kind of birder you are. And next, we're leaving quiet elegance behind for pure flash and funk, because Panama's next bird moonwalks through the forest like a feathered Michael Jackson. We've met Panama's bass singers, bell ringers, and stained glass beauties. Now it's time for the showman. Meet the red-capped Manakin, a bird so funky it moonwalks through the forest floor like a feathered Michael Jackson. Picture this, a tiny bird with jet black body, bright golden thighs, and a brilliant cherry red cap that looks like it was dipped in paint. Cute, yes, but wait until you see it dance. Here's the hook. When it's time to impress the ladies, the red-capped Manakin doesn't just sing or flash feathers. It busts out a courtship dance. And the star move? A rapid back and forth shuffle along a branch that looks exactly like the moonwalk. Yes, long before TikTok dances, this little bird was already going viral in the rainforest. And here's the twist. The dance isn't random, it's carefully choreographed. Males practice for weeks, fine-tuning their steps and timing. The smoother the slide, the better the chances of winning a mate. Think of it as Dancing with the Stars Jungle Edition. Fun fact, their wings also make little mechanical snapping sounds during the performance, adding percussion to the show. So really, it's not just a dance, it's a full-blown musical production. Despite their small size, these mannequins are surprisingly bold. Males perform in leks, communal display arenas, where several birds show off while females wander through like judges at a talent show. It's flashy, competitive, and ridiculously entertaining. Spotting one in Panama feels like stumbling into a secret dance floor in the middle of the jungle. And once you've seen that moonwalk, it's burned into your memory forever. So here's my question for you. If you had to win a mate with a performance, would you go for singing, drumming, or full-on dancing like the red-capped Manakin? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm dying to know which skill you'd pick. And next, we'll trade funky dance moves for something much rarer and quieter. A dove so localized it only survives on one peninsula of Panama. From flashy moonwalking mannequins, we now swing to the opposite end of the spectrum, a quiet, secretive bird that few people will ever see. Meet the Azuero Dove, a shy ground dweller found only in one place on Earth, the Azuero Peninsula of Panama. At first glance, it looks modest. Soft gray head, warm brown wings, and a pinkish breast with a subtle shimmer in the right light. Nothing too dramatic. But here's the hook. This dove is critically endangered. Its entire population is restricted to a shrinking patch of dry forest on Azuero, making it one of Panama's rarest treasures. Unlike flashy Cotingas or loud bellbirds, the Azuero dove prefers to stay low, foraging quietly on the forest floor for seeds and fallen fruit. It moves with a gentle, bobbing gait, often freezing in place when disturbed, blending perfectly into the leaf litter. And here's the twist. Despite its delicate appearance, the Azuero dove is incredibly tough. It has survived decades of deforestation and hunting pressure. But now, with its habitat reduced to fragments, every surviving bird matters. Spotting one is considered a holy grail moment for birders visiting Panama. Fun fact, unlike the cooing doves you might hear in your backyard, the Azuero dove has a soft, mournful call that sounds almost like a whisper. Locals sometimes describe it as a forest sigh. It's fitting, given how close this bird has come to disappearing. Conservation groups are now working to protect what little habitat remains, hoping to give this dove a chance to rebound. Because if it vanishes from Azuero, it vanishes from the world forever. So here's my question for you. Would you travel halfway across the globe to see one rare bird like the Azuero dove, even if it meant hiking through hot, dry forest for hours? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know how far you'd go for a once-in-a-lifetime sighting. And finally, we'll close our Panama journey with a bird that lurks in the shadows, hard to see, but unforgettable once you find it. A forest phantom with a haunting call. We've seen Panama's jeweled quetzals, booming bellbirds, and moonwalking mannequins. But to close this journey, we're ending with a bird that doesn't dazzle with color or dance moves. It haunts the forest with mystery. Meet the Black-crowned Antpitta, the rainforest's elusive shadow. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. Plump, round-bodied, with brown plumage streaked for camouflage and a stark black crown. It's not flashy, it's not loud, yet birders across the world dream of seeing one. Why? Because this bird is ridiculously hard to find. Here's the hook. The Black-crowned Antpitta spends its life on the forest floor, slipping silently through leaf litter and shadows. It almost never flies. Instead, it hops like a feathered soccer ball, vanishing into undergrowth before most people realize it was there. And here's the twist. Despite its shy appearance, its voice is unforgettable. A low, mournful whoo, whoo, whoo that echoes through the forest like a heartbeat. Locals sometimes call it the ghost drummer, because the sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Fun fact, unlike many antbirds that chase insects flushed by army ants, the Black-crowned Antpitta hunts solo. It probes the soil for worms, beetles, and spiders. Patient, quiet, deliberate. No showmanship, just pure survival. Spotting one in Panama is a birder's badge of honor. Guides often say, you don't find the Antpitta, it finds you. One wrong step, one broken twig, and it's gone. But if you're lucky enough to catch its round form hopping across the trail, it feels like the jungle just revealed a secret it rarely shares. And here's the truth. Sometimes the most magical birds aren't the brightest or loudest. They're the ones that remind us nature still holds mysteries we can't control. So here's my question for you. Would you rather spend hours chasing a rare, shy bird like the Black-crowned Antpitta, or settle for an easy sighting of a more common species? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your take. And with that, our Panama adventure comes to a close. But don't go anywhere. We still have one last flight together in the outro. Hey, before you click away, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which of Panama's birds completely blew your mind? Because after this journey, one thing is clear. Panama isn't just a strip of land with a canal, it's a living, breathing crossroads of nature. We met giants like the Harpy Eagle, dancing legends like the Red-capped Manakin, booming singers like the Three-wattled Bellbird, and shy mysteries like the Black-crowned Antpitta. Each one plays a role in Panama's forests, from planting trees with every meal to keeping ecosystems in balance. Some wowed us with pure beauty, the Resplendent Quetzal shimmering like a jewel. Some scared us a little, the spectacled owl staring like it could read our thoughts. And some just made us laugh. The moonwalking Manakin still deserves its own music video. But here's the truth. Every one of these birds depends on healthy forests and safe habitats. Without protection, their songs, dances, and stories could vanish. So keep looking up. Because in Panama, the skies aren't just full of wings, they're full of legends. And in our next adventure, we'll travel north to meet birds that rule icy lakes, mountain forests, and wide open plains. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.